I was just coming to talk to you about this exact problem. It's called permafrost for a reason, right? Because it's permanently frozen. I mean, it would help us a lot if it was more than like 35 degrees for at least like 4 hours. We need some warm weather. Parker Schnabel risked his entire operation on a collapsed mine the Yukon had written off as an unforgiving death trap. They called it the Widow's Cut, a place frozen solid and haunted by past failures. To crack it, Parker deployed a secret weapon, an LAR system that could see through the Earth itself. It led him to a forgotten shaft and a $75 million discovery that would make him the undisputed king of the Klondike. But what this incredible technology also uncovered was a century-old secret that could cost him more than just his gold. The ground no one dared touch. For starters, the entire area was buried under a thick layer of permafrost. Now, we're not talking about just a bit of frozen dirt. This is ground that has been frozen solid, as hard as concrete, for thousands upon thousands of years. Think about that for a second. The pressure and stability of that ground are completely unpredictable. The energy required to just break through it is immense. For perspective, digging in permafrost can consume up to 40% more fuel and cause twice the wear and tear on heavy machinery compared to regular earth moving. Any attempt to dig into it carried the constant terrifying threat of multi-ton chunks of frozen earth and rock suddenly breaking loose, ready to crush anything or anyone below in an instant. Not good running into permafrost here in the cut that we want to be slow. The only thing we can do is send a pay to Big Red, and hopefully it thaws before Big Red runs out of a pig. If that wasn't enough to scare miners away, there was the ever-present risk of a catastrophic flood. You see, hidden within and beneath the permafrost are often pockets of unfrozen water or underground springs. Just a slight change in temperature or vibration from an excavator could puncture one of these pockets, turning the mine shaft into a watery demise in seconds. It could wipe out millions of dollars of heavy machinery and bring an entire operation to a screeching halt. It was a place where one single wrong move could end not just your season but your entire career. But Parker Schnabel saw something nobody else did. It's funny when you think about it. Most miners looked at the Widow's Cut and saw a guaranteed failure, a money pit. Parker looked at it and saw the biggest opportunity of his life. That's just how he's wired. Ever since he was a kid, learning at the feet of his legendary grandpa, John Schnabel, Parker has been a gambler at heart. He's always pushed for bigger goals, more land, and more gold than anyone thought possible. While rivals like Tony Beats might lean on decades of old-school experience and brute force, Parker combines that Klondike grit with a relentless youthful ambition and a surprising embrace of modern tech. He wasn't just trying to have a good season. He was aiming for a mind-boggling 7,000-ounce goal. That's over $128 million at today's prices. Hitting a number like that would cement his status as the undisputed king of the Klondike. Yeah, I think the only way we can kinda get over this hump is to get a plant going, and we could slice a bunch of tailings and see if there's anything. So for Parker, seeing the Widow's Cut, a place feared by all, wasn't a warning sign. Truth be told, it was a wide-open invitation. He figured that if nobody else had the guts to tackle it, then whatever gold was buried down there was his for the taking. It was a massive high-stakes risk, betting his entire operation on a geological death trap. But Parker had a secret weapon up his sleeve that the old-timers could never have dreamed of. Eyes in the sky. Faced with a challenge that seemed impossible, Parker decided to fight smarter, not just harder. Instead of launching a brute force war against the permafrost with dozers and excavators, a battle he would likely lose, he brought in the big guns, high-tech eyes in the sky. Parker and his crew unleashed a state-of-the-art LAR system, a piece of technology that is fundamentally revolutionizing the mining game and other industry from archaeology to forestry. It's the kind of tech that just a decade ago was mostly reserved for military and government agencies. You see, LAR stands for light detection and ranging. And what it does is almost like magic. A device often mounted on a drone shoots millions of laser pulses down to the ground every single second. These pulses bounce off the surface and return to a sensor, measuring the precise distance and creating an incredibly detailed three-dimensional map of the terrain. We're talking about accuracy down to a few centimeters. They paired this laser technology with advanced drone mapping, flying meticulously back and forth over every inch of the forbidding landscape. That is Gold Run, which was a super-rich creek. And where it dumped into Dominion, I'm guessing was, in this area right here. I think there's going to be a bunch of gold in the tailings. This combination gave them a superpower. They could effectively see through the thick trees, the tangled undergrowth, and even layers of loose soil, mapping out the true contours of the earth in a way that was previously impossible. It was a massive, game-changing advantage. While other crews were stuck guessing, drilling blind test holes, and hoping for the best, Parker's team was building a perfect digital model of the widow's cut. They weren't just looking for gold. They were looking for a weakness, a hidden path, a secret way into the treasure chest that had been locked for generations. And then, as the data poured in and the 3D model took shape on their computer screens, they found something astonishing, something that had been lost for decades. The breakthrough the lasers provided was stunning. Hidden under a century of wilderness and debris, the LAR map revealed a perfectly straight man-made anomaly. It was a collapsed vertical shaft, a forgotten relic from the original mining operation from the early 20th century, completely invisible to the naked eye. Their precise measurements showed it was over 40 m deep. That's more than 130 foot straight down into the darkness. This was it. This was their secret entrance. Instead of trying to dig a whole new ramp down into the mine, which would have been a costly, dangerous, and time-consuming battle against the permafrost, they could use this existing shaft. The plan was terrifying but brilliant. The crew immediately got to work, hauling in massive reinforced steel beams to stabilize the crumbling walls of the old shaft. It was slow, nerve-wracking work. Every scrape of the excavator's bucket against the rock echoed in the dangerous silence, a constant reminder of what could go wrong. But with Parker's expert crew leading the charge, they managed to build a safe enough pathway down into the heart of the mine. I see some frozen chunks of pay by the plant. It sounds like Justin and Tyson are having a really hard time with frozen material. It's just been a really cold spring, and that's, bound to come with issues. After weeks of frustration and battling the elements, they finally had a direct line to the prize. But no one, not even Parker, in his wildest dreams, was prepared for what was waiting for them at the bottom. The king's ransom. The moment the crew's equipment reached the bottom of that stabilized shaft, they knew they had hit the mother lode. What they found was simply breathtaking. It wasn't just flakes of gold mixed in with paraded. It was an untouched quartz-rich gold vein glittering brilliantly in the beams of their lights. This is the stuff of legend. Finding a high-yield quartz vein is like finding the direct source, the artery of the gold deposit, instead of just a scattered dust that has been washed away from it over millennia. It was so pure, so pristine, that Parker's on-site geologist said it was the cleanest and richest natural deposit he had ever seen in his entire career. There was absolutely no time to waste. The team knew that in the tight-knit Klondike community, whispers of a discovery this big could attract claim jumpers or unwanted attention from rivals. So, they got to work with a frantic, desperate energy. They worked around the clock 24 hours a day, fueled by pure adrenaline and the mesmerizing sight of all that gold. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. In just 72 hours, 3 days of non-stop grueling labor, they managed to extract more than 4,000 ounces of gold. When they did the math, that single cleanup was worth over $10 million. It was a season-saving haul that covered their fuel, wages, and massive operating costs in one incredible weekend. We've got to do this as fast as we can here to get this ground exposed. This is what it's going to take. I mean, everybody's got to step up because we just have too much ground to get through. The gamble had paid off big time, but this incredible score was just a tiny taste of the true treasure lurking deeper in the earth. That $10 million haul was a game changer. But the team geologist had even more shocking news. After examining the geology of the massive quartz vein, he realized it was far larger than anyone had imagined. It didn't just stop in their little chamber. It extended further underground. A lot further. After some quick calculations based on the vein's thickness, its observed richness, and its projected length from geological surveys, the team figured out that it stretched for another 2 kilometers. That's about 1.25 miles. This is where the numbers get truly insane. Taking into account the incredible richness of the gold they had already pulled out, they ran the numbers on the full 2 kilometers vein. The potential value was staggering. Another $75 million. If they could pull it off, this wouldn't just be a successful season. It would be the single most successful mining operation in the history of the Gold Rush Show. It was a kind of find that miners spend their entire lives dreaming about and never come close to. But with a discovery this big, Parker knew that his biggest fight was just beginning. You can't keep a $75 million secret in the Klondike. Word of Parker's strike at the Widow's Cut got out fast, spreading through the gold fields like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone was talking. Rival miners, curious locals, and even government inspectors were buzzing about what Parker had found. The pressure was on, but the gold rush also unearthed a rush of greed, lies, and betrayal. When legends lie, the ink on the assay reports had barely dried when the scandals began. It started as whispers in saloons of Dawson City, then escalated to viral posts on social media. One of the most outrageous claims was that Parker had been sentenced to life in prison for environmental crimes. A complete fabrication, a piece of digital fiction likely cooked up by a jealous rival. But in the hyper-competitive world of gold mining, a lie can do more damage than a broken-down dozer. This gold mining gets in your veins, gets in your blood. The rumor forced Parker to spend precious time and money on lawyers and public relations, a new kind of warfare for which he was ill-prepared. The attacks grew more sophisticated. A shell corporation with ties to a shadowy international consortium filed a lawsuit challenging the legality of his claim on the Widow's Cut. They produced a series of expertly forged century-old documents that seemed to give him a legitimate claim to the land. Parker, who had always settled disputes with a handshake or a shouting match, now found himself tangled in a web of legal maneuvering that threatened to bleed him dry. His rivals, sensing a moment of weakness, began to circle. Tony Beat, in particular, seemed to relish Parker's predicament, offering condescending advice in public while quietly fanning the flames of the legal battle behind the scenes. The pressure was starting to crush everyone on Parker's crew. What should have been a season of celebration had turned into a boiling pot of conflict. Fights broke out over who deserved the biggest bonus. The easy camaraderie was replaced by suspicion and resentment. Some crew members, not used to having so much money, started partying hard in town, leading to embarrassing headlines about crash cars and bar fights. Parker had always led from the front, but now he was spending more time putting out fires and mining gold. His once loyal crew was slowly fracturing, with each person focused on their own potential payday. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? We see these massive numbers on a screen, $75 million, and it sounds like a fairy tale. It sounds like all your problems are solved forever. That doesn't seem to want to come up. Whoa, what the heck? But the reality is often the opposite. It's easy to think that a discovery like this happens overnight. A simple case of being in the right place at the right time. But what we don't see is the years of risk, the crushing debt, and the relentless pressure that leads to that one lucky moment. Is it possible that the story of the $75 million jackpot isn't entirely what it seems? When a story sounds this perfect, this unbelievable, are we missing a key detail? The truth is, finding the treasure was the easy part. The real challenge, the one that breaks most people, is surviving the win. Parker Schnabel turned an impossible mine into a king's ransom. But did the gold make him a legend, or did it unleash a curse? Let us know in the comments.